Hey, podcast listeners, it's Savannah here, producer of Corporate Competitor Podcast, and we're thrilled to announce our return to weekly episodes. Our goal is to help you grow each and every week. Speaking of growth, most of you know that Don is one of the most in-demand speakers on the public circuit. So as your company is preparing an upcoming gathering, I wanted you to know about his newest and most popular keynote on the art of storytelling. Don teaches you how to connect deeply with any audience, big or small. You can now move beyond mere numbers and engage stakeholders with stories that resonate and inspire. Remember, this skill is teachable. Harness the techniques that make Don the greatest storyteller in America, as Simon Sinek and John Maxwell have said time and time again. If you want to learn more, visit donyaeger.com/storytelling to reach out to our team.
What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 150 conversations with executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, I've learned that sports is a common denominator. Some of our guests' athletic experiences earned them a place in their sports hall of fame, like Chick-fil-A chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claim they weren't that great in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them leadership lessons that they still use today. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, I'm your host, Don Yaeger, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful change in your organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is David Rogier, the founder and CEO of MasterClass, the groundbreaking online learning platform that has transformed the landscape of education and lifelong learning. His vision was to capture, share, and preserve invaluable knowledge and stories from the world's best so that future generations could access and appreciate them. In 2020, David was recognized on Fortune's 40 Under 40 as one of the most influential leaders in media and entertainment, and I'm excited to learn from him today. Be sure to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/notes to access our revamped downloadable PDF. This resource now includes my favorite quotes from today's episode, along with a practical leadership exercise designed to help you implement today's key lessons in 5 minutes or less.
What's something that you failed at today? We at the company decided to send out the biggest thing that we failed at. This is a positive thing. And what it emphasizes, here's the things that we learned. Here's why the team did a fantastic job on it. And this is why I'm so proud and impressed by the team. The only way you're going to discover new things and do big, cool new things is you're going to have to fail at them. Get back up, learn from it, and go build the next thing.
David, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Reading about your life and your career, it was evident that early in your life, you established curiosity as a superpower. Tell me about how curiosity played a role for you growing up.
It was always encouraged at home, but not rewarded at school. I stutter, and it was much worse when I was a kid. And, that's could make somebody feel shy to share things, to ask questions, to talk. But my parents took a very different approach. My parents, whenever they had friends over for lunch or for dinner, their expectation was that we would join them at the adult table, and that we would be involved in the discussion. And my parents would ask me my point of view on things. It was very clear from them and my grandparents that how I talk or my speech should never get in the way and they weren't going to let it get in the way of ideas I had or thoughts or of asking questions. But at school, maybe up until, seventh grade, I wasn't encouraged to ask questions.
Mm.
In fact, I would get in trouble for asking questions. I was seen as challenging the expertise of the school teacher, being disruptive. Kids would tease me about it, that I asked questions. But yeah, it was encouraged at home and from a very young age.
I love that. And kudos to your parents to pull that out of you and to encourage that. I'm the father of a 15-year-old who does the exact same thing. And he feels the same way. The teachers are not bad about him asking questions, but other kids are.
Yeah.
He's notoriously curious. And I'm hoping that he'll do something as big as you did.
So cool. So cool. Yeah. Thank you.
You mentioned your grandparents already.
Yeah.
I know they were an important part of your childhood. And I think it's important for those who are listening to understand they survived the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And they taught you through all that they had been through how important education was.
Yeah, of course. I remember, I think I was in second grade, and my mom and dad both worked. So after school, I was dropped off at my grandmother's house. I was complaining to her about, I think, probably like math homework, and obviously in second grade, you like don't have a lot of math homework. So I'm sure I was just whining and complaining, and my grandma tells me that she has a story to tell me, which also in second grade, it's like the last thing that you want somebody in your family telling you a story from a long time ago. She tells me the story that probably changed my life.
Mm.
When my grandma was 16 years old, she lived in Krakow in Poland.
Mhm.
Her and her mom went on a family vacation. Dad was going to join, but stayed home a couple extra days to finish some work. While they're on vacation, the Nazis invaded. They ended up to kill her father. She flees to New York City. Only job her and her mom can get is on a factory floor. So they are working side by side. And my grandma decides that she wants to become a doctor.
Mm.
Applies to every medical school in the state of New York. And she gets a no from every single school in the state of New York. Keeps working in the factory with her mom. Applies again next year to every school in the state of New York. Gets a no from every school in the state of New York again. She starts to reach out to the deans of admissions asking, why am I not getting in? They all refuse to talk to her except for one guy who says, I'll be honest with you. You have 3 strikes against you. You are a woman, you are a immigrant, and you're Jewish.
Mm. How about somebody being that bold and blunt?
That bold and blunt, and obviously not thinking that those things are okay. She keeps working in the factory, applies again the next year, gets into one school, and becomes a doctor. And Don, I'm staring at her because this is like intense stuff to be hearing from like, I was just being a pain in the butt. And, and she tells me this. And she says, look, David, the thing I'm trying to tell you is that the only thing that someone can't take from you is your education. That stuck with me. That pushed me to probably be more curious, to want to learn more and ask more questions, as we're just talking about. But it also pushed me when I had a chance to build a company that tried to do that same thing.
Mm.
I mean, we actually, when we incorporated, we actually did it under her name. We actually used her name as it. All our legal documents, all our paychecks, have her on it. Yeah, I mean, the company's probably sick of me talking about my grandma.
I doubt that. The inspiration, it's amazing where it comes from. Knowledge is power. Everyone should have access to genius. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And talk about putting your whining in perspective too.
Yeah.
You're listening to her basically share with you, be honored to take that math class.
Yeah. I mean, my other grandparents who actually met in Auschwitz concentration camp, unless you are back in that camp, life is okay. Everything was put in perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing opportunity for you. at a very early age to have found some interesting direction as well.
Yeah.
And now you run one of the best educational organizations of all time. You've made high quality education accessible to a global audience. I've been a subscriber for more than 5 years.
So cool. It's one step to how we start to improve our world and to evolve and to grow. Because if you can learn from people who you never had access to, one, it makes an equal playing field. But two, as a species, it lets us get a head start on becoming that next expert. If I want to be the best basketball coach of all time, instead of having to learn everything from scratch, if I can hear what Coach K has already learned, I get a little bit of a head start of now all the things now I want to learn on top of that to actually become the next best coach.
I love this access to people you wouldn't typically get access to.
Yeah.
Today, I'm going to guess you can command an audience with just about anybody because of the worldwide impact.
Yeah.
At the beginning,
It was impossible.
is there something you can teach me about how you got started that would allow the listener maybe to get some level of encouragement?
Yeah. There are lots of ways to do this. I knew it was going to take a long time to sign these folks. I don't come from that world. So how was I going to both sustain my own mental strength and self, but also how could I raise some cash to help fuel it? How could I prove this to myself and to other people, including potential instructors?
Mm-hmm.
And I got great advice. Think of it like a science experiment. What are the core hypotheses you have, or the things that you have to prove, or the things that have to go right for this to work? Number one, I'm going to have to be able to sign these people to actually teach. The only way to kind of do that is I just have to go try to sign them. Number two is I have to be able to make great stuff with them, the class that's engaging and good. Well, that I don't actually have to have them to test that out. I could try to film somebody easier and see if I can make something great with them. So we did, like, for example, some test classes with my mom and dad.
Did you really?
Yeah, and we did put them on MasterClass, and we did what it wasn't to sell them, but it was like, if we spend a couple of days, can we make something that's good or not?
That's awesome.
And this wasn't intentional at first, but it happened when we shot some of our first test classes. I would look at it and be like, oh, that does not look good. You think it's easy to be like a filmmaker? The stuff I was doing did not look good. And so I remember I went to somebody I could talk to, advice, and I got connected to a guy named Bill Gutentag, who is an Oscar-winning documentary film director.
Mm.
We went and asked him for advice. How can we shoot this to look better? And he's like, you aren't going to have me shoot it? We sorry, what? He's like, this sounds like a fun project. And Bill shot 2 of our first 3 classes. And Jay Roach, who's another amazing film director, actually shot the other one. These people were willing to do stuff. So when I went and pitched the instructors, I could then say, hey, the film directors are going to be Bill Gutentag.
Oscar winners.
Yeah. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I've seen his stuff. Oh, yeah, his stuff is great. The next thing was, are people going to want to buy this?
Mm-hmm.
Hard to tell without building the whole thing, but I was like, I can get proxies of demand. What if I do a survey or poll and ask them, really try to figure out how much would you pay for it? Would you really pay for it? Or what if I mocked something up and I put it in front of them and try to gauge their interest? We approached it like that, which in retrospect, not only made us feel good about the idea, but also I could go back to investors and potential instructors and be like, hey, look, here's how I'm trying to think through this. Here's the work I'm doing. And I think that brought them along. I think it also excited them and also shows, hey, that's like a clever way to do it.
Treating it as a science experiment. I love that. We got to have a hypothesis, but then we got to be able to prove it to be true. Some of your early signings, Dustin Hoffman, Serena Williams, author James Patterson.
Those were our first 3 classes.
First 3 classes.
Yeah.
Coming out of the box, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it probably took 2-ish years.
What was the biggest hangup? Was it trying to figure out the business side of it, or was it what they teach?
Oh, it was trying to get anybody to say yes to actually doing this. I was unknown. Our idea was totally new. I mean, MasterClass launched 8.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Online education was still new. And it's not just convincing them. You got to convince people to get you to them. these people are masters of their craft, have a lot of things going on, can earn tons of money doing lots of things. And so, we really had to try to think not only how could I reach them, but once I do, what are they going to care about? We thought really hard about it. And number one, they all had somebody in their life that was a mentor,
Mhm.
a teacher, an advisor that really changed them. So there was this intrinsic desire inside to want to give back, to want to repay that, to want to help. If they don't have that, it wasn't going to work, because to take a risk on something new, you have to intrinsically really want it to work. Two, what is it that their teams are going to care about? They're going to care, are they going to come across well? Is it going to be what they want to say? Is their public image going to be reflected in how they have worked so hard for it? How could I ensure them of that? Because it's easy if you are a known quantity. If you are a big film studio and you're gonna, make a film with them, it's going to look good. The marketing's gonna be good. Everything's gonna be good. For us, we were totally brand new. How could I make them feel that way? One piece of advice that we actually got from our instructors was to give them the approval rights on the class.
Mm.
That might sound like an obvious thing, but in the film industry, an actor never gets approval over the film.
Mm.
Often a director doesn't always get approval over a film. We said, hey, the instructor, we're only going to put this out if this is something that you are proud of and love. Now, because we're on their team and we want it to be good, we're never going to try to make them look bad, but that made them feel safer.
Yeah.
Just trying to really think through, what are they going to care about, and how do you dress up?
So I think before you go big, practice, create some elements that allow you to perfect your craft. A lot of us have ideas and we just want to throw it to the world.
Practice and test. Most ideas you can figure out parts that you can test.
And then when you're reaching out, as you did, if you make the right pitch, if you're explaining what it is you're trying to learn, the right people might come into your life and actually say, why am I not part of that?
Yeah. To realize, and this took me a while too, is when I pitch, it's not just saying the things I think are important. It's really trying to figure out what is they care about. And most of our pitches, it wasn't me presenting a deck or be like, now it's time for it. It's asking questions, having a conversation, because you want the person engaged with you, compared to just like, here are the 12 points I want to make sure I tell you.
What was also cool about your answer there is that while working with these people, especially those first three, you're not pitching them on, boy, this is going to make you wealthy. You found they had someone they wanted to return their mentorship for. Like, this person poured into you. Now you get a chance to pour into others. By the way, a masterful sales technique, because you're able to say to them, you're going to be better for having had this experience. And it has nothing to do with the money or anything else. It has everything to do with paying it forward.
Yeah, and look, I wanted to be fair with them. They are taking a risk too, but I couldn't promise them how much it was going to make or anything, because I didn't have any idea.
Yeah. So when you and I went to school, and I'm generously putting myself in your age range, classrooms were all about transfer of information from a teacher to a student. Now, as you've said, in these last 8.5 years since you started, so much information's already out there. And I heard you say the job of education is to excite you to access it. That if we can create exciting enough opportunities that people are going to go seek it, it's going to stick with you so much better. Can you share a story, maybe of a subscriber, somebody who used what they learned that maybe inspires you?
Our instructors go on the platform and look at students, and it's just so cool.
Yeah.
James Patterson, the best-selling author, gave us a call one day and said, hey, I'm looking at the students in the class, and some are really talented. Actually, would love to pick one to co-author a book with.
No way.
It needs to be a blind process and a fair process to actually discover who is the best. We did it. And the person who won is a mother who always had a dream to write,
Mm.
but never was enough to pay the bills. And she wrote a book with James Patterson. Not only filled a dream, but found potentially a career and profession for her. I, I, I mean, so inspiring to me. She had worked on her craft for years and years, but never had seen that type of stage for it. The fact that she did submit it, which is a scary and hard thing, and that it was judged just on the criteria of the craft, that rocks my world.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, to think that you started this as an opportunity to kind of create a business, but now it's life changing. You know, this might be like asking an author which was his favorite book or her favorite book. But is there one of these classes that has been most impactful to you and the way you lead?
I mean, totally. We have a class from Sara Blakely, who's a founder of Spanx.
Oh, love Sarah.
Sarah's awesome. She has an example in her class where her father, every night at dinner, wouldn't just ask him what happened at school, but what's something that you failed at today.
Mm,
And what he was trying to do was make it a acceptable and a normalized thing to try things and fail. And I thought that was so cool. So we at the company decided to send out the biggest thing that we failed at. You might hear that. Your first reaction was like, "Oh God, like what are you trying to call?" No, 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 no. This is a positive thing, and what it emphasizes: here's the things that we learned. Here's why the team did a fantastic job on it, and this is why I'm so proud and impressed by the team. The only way you're going to discover new things and do big, cool new things is you're going to have to fail at them, get back up, learn from it, and go build the next thing.
one of my favorite quotes actually hangs on the wall of my office from a conversation I had many years ago with Michael Jordan. Loss is not a failure until you turn it into an excuse.
So cool.
You are actually turning those failures into learning opportunities, means it's no longer a failure. The loss is not a failure.
Yeah.
So, what's the best failure that you look at and you go, man, that was a good one? That was a good failure.
Oh, I mean, lots. When we launched MasterClass,
Mhm.
we began with individual classes. That's how people almost identify themselves. Hey, I'm an actor. I want to take an acting class. I'm a writer. I want to take a writing class. We then started seeing people started identify themselves as more than one thing. Hey, I'm a writer who also likes to cook. We then launched with only like 14 classes, so not a lot, a subscription offering. I should have done that sooner.
Mm.
That took off. I didn't update my mental vision of what was happening fast enough. After that, I really tried to say, hey, what are the mental models I have in my head and challenge them and test them? Because it's easy to be like, we've already tried that, or that isn't what I heard in a customer interview. But like, I might be talking to the wrong people. So we do tons of insights work even before making a class, figuring out what things people want to learn about from who. After we pick somebody, figuring out what should the class be on. After we film it, what parts are working, what parts aren't, what parts people are bored. After it's out there, what parts people watching not, both from a qualitative and a quantitative point of view.
Mm.
After that, the speed that we've evolved has been much faster because in the pandemic, people evolved another way. They're like, I have a lot of time and a new hobby. I would like a 20-hour class that's spread over 8 weeks. And we then did that, worked really well. Post-pandemic, people now are like, 20 hours? I don't have 20 hours. And I don't have time for a new hobby. I have work I want to improve at. I want to get paid more. I want a job promotion. I want to sleep better. So we've evolved our content after that. So that's one that I've tried to learn from.
Wow, I love that. The adjustments have been to be thinking ahead for what your customer wants from you.
Yeah. And there can often be a difference between what people say they want and what they actually want and do.
Right.
Be very attuned to that and really try to figure out what is it that they actually are doing or wanting. That's when it's great to look at the stats because you can hear what somebody says, oh, I really want to take these classes. You're like, that's not what you watch,
That's
right?
not what you're showing up and doing.
100%. If you ask me what type of food I like to eat, it's healthy food, it's salads, it's vegetables. you look when I eat, there's quite a bit of, junk food in there.
I got the French fries sitting right across the table over there.
Awesome. Being really upfront in your internal work, here's what people say they want, here is what they actually want.
Right.
You're calling it out so everybody knows to try to figure out both. And when you talk to customers, there are ways to try to get to it. Extremely early on, when I was testing things for MasterClass, all different ideas, and I would mock stuff up and I'd put it in front of people. And my last question would be if they're willing to pay for it.
Mm.
I would then ask them to actually pay for it.
It's such a great point because sometimes we ask them that and then they go, oh, yeah, of course. And then you go, okay, good. And we'll get back. No,
Like, can you please hand me the $10? I'll make you one of the first customers.
click here.
There's one guy I was showing stuff to. I'd go to him. It was maybe 3 or 4 times. And I keep asking him, is this something you're willing to pay for? And he kept saying no. And it was like the 4th time. And he's like, yeah, I would. I was like, oh my God, really? He's like, I mean, I just feel bad for you now. And I was like, okay, thank you, but I haven't cracked it yet.
We're not looking for sympathy purchases. So I recently had an opportunity to experience the behind the scenes production as your team interviewed Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, and he recorded his class. Now, without giving too much away, can you tease a little about what a class from a leader like him might be teaching us and how the idea to seek his mastery came to fruition?
One of the things that so impressed us about Ed was how we led during a crisis.
Mm.
Those lessons are applicable, and we have crises all the time in all different small and big ways. During the pandemic, he led the charge on transparency, being really upfront with all customers. Here's what our concerns are. Here's how we're going to address them, and kept his word. I remember one, he said, we're not going to sit and we're going to leave an empty seat between everybody.
Right.
Other airlines would say that, but then you'd go on their flights and they didn't. Ed did it. Delta came out of that with, in my mind, a stronger brand and more trust.
Yeah. I did a podcast with Ed, and I'm actually writing his book right now. And in the process of doing both of those things and then watching your interview with him, it's really a masterclass in communication. He talked every week to his employees on a video call to everybody. Sometimes his answer was, I don't know. That's hard for CEOs to say, but his ability to do that made him just an extraordinary leader in a really time of crisis.
Yeah. And I mean, I've talked to a bunch of employees at Delta, not high up, and you ask them what they think of Ed, they only have positive things to say about him. So many of them have a story where they saw him somewhere and they went up to him and then they had a nice conversation with him.
Right.
To your point, it's not that they necessarily love every answer, every policy or anything, but they feel it's honest, it's transparent, it is well-intentioned.
It's authentic.
It's authentic.
Pretty powerful. The premise of our podcast is that there are some lessons that many people have learned through athletics that actually transfer into business. Now, Ed Bastian played high school baseball, was really good at it, and he talks a little bit about that. I know you love playing pickleball.
Great research. I'm very impressed.
Has there been an experience on a pickleball court that's maybe even shaped a little bit, something that you've learned about yourself competitively, maybe that you've leaned into that's helped make you better?
My wife and I are definitely fierce players.
Fierce. I like it.
We use tape to make our own court in our driveway. What makes pickleball fun and a popular sport is it's very easy to be not bad at it. The ball isn't going to move that extremely fast. It's kind of a big, it is a larger ball. The court's small. On anybody's first time, the person's a decent player. If their hand-eye coordination isn't atrocious, their person's going to be a fine player their first time. That's a great lesson in business. On the product side, whenever you make an experience, making sure that person has a good first-time experience and that's easy to have a first-time experience. And I've tried so many different things on the tech side, even stores. It is hard to figure it out. Yeah. I walked into a store to look at a new mattress, and they insisted I take a 20-minute sleep test sim. I'm like, I really just want to like touch them and see if they're soft. Like, no, you really need to go through this whole experience. It's so neat. I'm like, no, and I ended up to walk out. That first experience, how do you make it just so easy to have it be good?
That's so good. So many places you get it. You go to buy a car and they want to show you the engine. Maybe the engine doesn't matter to me. Maybe all I care about are the cup holders. Show me how many cup holders we have. And that's really what's going to matter to me. I love it. One of the things we talk a lot about in our podcast is teams. Many people in the corporate world talk about their team, but the truth is that many of the people that are actually on their team really just, they're just carrying the same business card. They're actually not really on a team. You've built a team there. What you guys do and the way you take on these subjects and the way you deliver this content, you built a team. If you're coaching someone listening today who wants to take a bunch of disparate parts and build it into a team, what are some of the elements that you would suggest we learn from you on how to build a team?
First, I would take Coach K's class on MasterClass. I stole a bunch from him. Every year he has a new team.
Right?
And one of the big things when you see him in the class and he actually shows you how to do it is to have frequent discussions and conversations on values and on expectations. Now, some people be like, come on, this is like a waste of time. It doesn't mean you have to print them out and put it on a big sheet of paper on the wall. You can, but it's talking about what are the principles of how we are going to work. That's something that we spend a lot of time on at the company. Comes up a lot. We do something called a left-handed question. Came from a coach actually. And the idea is like, whenever you have like a normal question or thought or comment you want to share, somebody raises their right hand and shares it. A left-handed comment or question is something that you're uncomfortable to share. And you raise your left hand and then you say it. I'll be honest. I thought this was a silly idea that's for kids in school. But coach really suggested I try it, and I tried it. And it was awesome. What ends up happening is somebody raises their left hand. Everybody's like, ooh, this is going to be something good. And they share it. It ends up what they say. It's just a really good question or comment or thought. And it was the thought that probably everybody in the room had, but maybe they were uncomfortable to share or embarrassed. So we want you to say things you're uncomfortable with. We want you to say the actual truth. That's just like a practice that then builds that as a part of your culture, of the team, of the values. And that has tons of effects. Not only do you get the best questions and the best comments, but you're also saying, hey, I'm encouraging people to say the hard things. I'm encouraging people to express concern. And I'm making that an acceptable thing, but I'm making that also a fun thing to do.
That is awesome. Left-handed questions. I do remember Coach talking about it, but I hadn't realized that you had instituted it in your own company.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd love to think about your company in terms of momentum. Most of us who love sports can see momentum shifts, but that's true in business too. Sometimes you have a moment that helps propel you or your opponent. The moment helps make things go forward. Have you ever had a moment in the building a masterclass where a choice or a decision maybe shifted the momentum in the way things were going? Something that you were doing got better because you had a spark.
I mean, it happens all the time. You become more aware of it when you're going through something tough or rough or something. I learned this from Jeff Immelt. When the pandemic happened, we got tons of calls from our investors. Our company is going to lose all demand. There's not going to be any interest there. People aren't going to spend any money. And the world, if we all recall, was very uncertain. We didn't know what was happening. And I actually called Jeff Immelt, who was the former CEO of GE. Jeff had been through 3 macro shocks. So I called him up and I was like, what kind of advice do you have? I've never been through a macro shock like this. Number one, be willing to accept 2 truths at the same time. Truth number 1 for us was our business is going to be impacted and messed up, and we're going to have a really tough time. Truth number 2, this is going to be good for our business. Plan for both, which we as a species are not good at.
Right. No.
Over communicate to everybody on your team. Even if you think you've shared a lot, share more. Any small win, put it out there into the world. So we went to the company and I was upfront about these truths. And you saw a momentum shift internally of one of like, okay, look, we don't know what's happening in the world. And this is scary, but we are a team and going to do everything that we can to try to figure it out. And that you felt a shift that our team came together even more. So we were one team. It was probably the first conversation had with the team about it, where I put up there where we are going to accept two different truths at the same time. That's very honest. That's very raw. That's not trying to be like, hey, everything's going to be great. You're like, no, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I'm operating as if there's two possible outcomes, and we're going to push hard on both.
I love it. How can our guests best connect with you and get engaged with MasterClass?
Couple ways. One, on your own, you can just go to masterclass.com, sign up and enroll. Two is if your company has it or something that you think that your firm should have and should pay for, we also have Masterclass at Work. Check that out. You can send me a note on social. And if there's any question, anything I can help with, I'm totally going to help.
Awesome. David, I cannot thank you enough today for joining us and being a corporate competitor.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
If that wasn't a masterclass in learning, I gained so much from that time learning from David. What a great gift he gave us to just be able to understand how he came to build Masterclass and how we can learn lessons from his journey. The first lesson I took came right out of the box. It was the story he shared about being in second grade and having his grandmother talk to him about the power of education. The only thing someone can't take from you is education. What a lesson. And for her to look at him and say, if you're not suffering what we suffered in concentration camps, you're not suffering. Be okay and learn and take that as your gift to yourself. And the idea that his grandmother's name is on every paycheck that every employee gets today, powerful stuff. My second takeaway came from the lessons he learned from Sara Blakely, the great founder of Spanx, and the idea that her father challenged her with the question, what's something you failed at today? And how David then turned that around and used it as an internal learning mechanism within his own team. What's something we failed at this week? And then broadcast it. And he is able to offer so much growth through that idea of failure. The third takeaway for me was when he talked about trying to understand customer feedback. How do you make adjustments to your product based upon what customers are looking for, and knowing the difference between what customers say they want and then what they actually want based upon their actions? The idea that he measured both of those elements in the process allowed him to reshape his company regularly based upon what customers are wanting and needing and how he can best serve them. And then finally, my last takeaway came from the great masterclass that David and his team did with Coach K, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I love Coach K. That idea of creating within your team and during learning opportunities, a left-handed question, a question you ask when you raise your left hand, it says to others that this is a question you're a little uncomfortable asking, and how much differently people were heard when they raised their left hand. In fact, if you want more Coach K wisdom, we actually had him on our podcast, episode 160. So add it to your queue and go back and listen. The thing I think I gained as much as anything from David today is that this isn't just a man offering learning to us. This is a man who is using that learning to better himself and his team. I encourage you, if you're not a subscriber to MasterClass, to consider it today. I love what they teach, and I hope you've loved what you've learned today. Thank you today for joining us and being a corporate competitor. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Feedback helps us spread the insights of our guests to a wider audience. It actually increases our ratings. Thank you so much for those who have done so in the past. And catch new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe at corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to be the first to get a chance to listen. And as a thank you gift, I will send you a chapter from one of my best-selling books. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is @Don Yeager, DonYaeger. And until next week, I appreciate you.